listening to Not So Alive from Asteroid G, getting melded to its own transpod. I'm your host, Mike Finkelstein.
Hey, buddy, Mike the Ghoul, loving David Cronenberg for this beautiful piece we're going to talk about here, aren't we?
We have, I think, skirted around this movie a number of times over the years as we've been chatting.
Yeah.
It comes up because it's really good, and then we go and talk about something else, because, I mean, it's a movie from 1986, but The Fly.
Yep.
The one with Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis and is fantastic. Has actually surprisingly aged really well, especially when you compare it to the 1950s version that hasn't.
Right.
Yeah.
To this day, is still, nearly 40 years later, because we're in the year of our, my goodness, 2025. This is surprisingly still really good and holds up really good and doesn't need to be relegated to the doldrums of sci-fi at 2 a.m. This is a great movie.
No, it's a great movie. It's surprising that it's so good for what it is. It's all thanks to David Cronenberg and Mel Brooks funding the movie and letting him do what he wanted. But yeah, it's an interesting piece because it takes a core idea of a 1950s sci-fi movie that really couldn't do its idea justice at all, and then makes something.
You don't like the guy with the fly mask and everything.
Make something wildly different of it. I've seen all the Fly movies. Okay, I've seen all 5 of them. So the 3 from the 1950s and the 2 from the 1980s, and only one of them is any good. Let's be clear about this. Yeah,
and that's this one by a mile.
This one. Yeah, the Jeff Goldblum, David Cronenberg one is phenomenal. You can pretty much skip everything else, honestly.
100%.
The Fly 2 is so bad. Ugh. Anyway, so The Fly is the movie where Jeff Goldblum has really crazy eyes. Okay, so we've reviewed the movie now. We can go on. No, but
he really does.
He really
the
does.
Whole movie. It's like Shelley Duvall eyes. The whole movie. It's terrifying.
And that's just his natural state. I don't think he was trying to do anything. I think it's just him.
That's why he wears the glasses now.
He's got to hold it back. Those eye beams are dangerous, man.
Yeah.
But no, he's Seth Brundle. I don't even know if I'm pretty sure they changed all the names from the previous movie. I'm not going to bother going to look. But he's Seth Brundle, a guy who is working on a teleportation device. That's the hook. That's what gets you in the first 15 minutes is he has a device where he can teleport things. And they call it a magic trick and they dismiss it. Gina Davis's reporter character is like, how did you do that? That's fake, right? But he kind of sells her on it and she believes it, but everyone else around her thinks it's fake as hell. Which is understandable. It basically looks like the most understated magic trick. Like, if we think about it, it reminds me of The Prestige.
Yes. Yeah. Great movie.
Well, yeah, where they both develop their different versions of the transported man. And the one that's a really good trick and isn't some weird pseudoscience is the one that can't sell itself because no one knows how to sell that trick properly.
Yeah.
It's an interesting setup to the movie that then takes a very nasty twist at one point. And the one thing about it is like when he goes into the telepod by himself and a fly buzzes in and then suddenly we have the fly. I'm sitting there going, man, this entire plot hinges on the fact that if these characters would have just talked for 3 minutes, this whole thing wouldn't have happened.
Probably, yeah. A little conversation goes a long way, but then we wouldn't have got this great masterpiece, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's interesting. It reminds me a lot of, I just watched Chernobyl recently, which is a great miniseries that was on HBO. Fantastic. Horrifying. Real body horror there, but a great miniseries. And there's a point where the people get infected and start to deteriorate, and then they feel great for a little while, and then they really die. Because that's how radiation at that level works. And watching him, where he goes to the transporter, feels fine for a little bit, suddenly feels great, and then rots away by the end of the movie, you're sitting there going, well, that's kind of radiation there in a way.
Yep. Yeah. It's very, very sciencey behind the science in this one. Yeah.
Even if the whole process is kind of weird. Like, his DNA slowly rewriting itself over time doesn't really make sense if you think about it. But at the same time, who cares? It was really cool looking.
Yeah, for sure. Like the body horror in this movie, right down to like, he's getting more ripped and everything, and he's he's getting the super strength. He's like breaking the guy's arm and everything when they're arm wrestling, and then the fingernails start going, and then all the other stuff starts going, and you're like, this is going in a direction that does not look very good. And then by the end of the movie, he, obviously unrecognizable as he just degenerates into this
massive fly creature,
horrific mass of a fly creature.
Yeah. So I think, and I know we've touched upon this before, like the part that I like best about this movie, the body horror is great, and it is a really horrifying horror movie. It actually
Yeah.
manages to be horror. But I think
Yeah.
the thing I like best and what sells the movie so well for me is the fact that at its core, it's still a love story, and the movie manages to
Yeah.
maintain that so you continue caring about these two characters even as one of the two of them goes through some real shit.
Yeah, you feel the pain at that end
Mm-hmm.
of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
when Gina Davis is looking down at, the person that she loves, and the father of her unborn child now, and he just takes the gun and just
Mm-hmm.
puts it against it. He's like, damn, like he
Mm-hmm.
really is just asking her to kill him, and it feels so bad, and you feel for the characters. We've talked about this a few times. When you give a shit about the characters and the growth and the way they've gone about the story and what has made them to make the decisions they've made, when you give a shit about them, it makes these tragic decisions they have to make all the more impactful. Even in a movie that is gross and disgusting, you felt bad for the character.
You do. You absolutely do. And it's something that works here that absolutely didn't work for me in Wolfman, even though it's clearly trying to
Mm,
be the same kind of movie, coming at it from a
yeah.
different perspective. But like that 2025 movie about a dude that slowly becomes a rat creature, not a wolfman. I'm never letting
Yeah.
that go.
It's
Uh,
it's something, that's for sure.
something he evolves into it, but he's trying to retain himself, and it happens way quicker. Like Seth Brundle slowly becomes the fly creature over the course of what, like 2 months or something.
It's at least 4 or
Yeah,
5 weeks, I think. Yeah.
yeah. It takes a long time for him to change, and
Hmm.
in the Wolfman, it's like 6 hours. And you barely spend time
Yeah.
with him. You don't understand who he was beforehand, not really. You don't
Mhm.
understand what the transition does to him, and then he just kind of quickly deteriorates and then asks
Mhm.
to be killed. Spoilers
Yeah.
for a really shitty movie from this year.
Watch this one. It's quite better.
You were going to watch anyway. We already did a podcast on it, and if you didn't watch it then, you're not watching it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like it's trying to hit the same beats, but it doesn't
Hmm.
hit it nearly as well as this film does. This film spends almost 40 minutes building the relationship between Seth and
Yeah. Ronnie, I think her
Ronnie.
name
There you go,
is.
Ronnie. That's
Yeah.
it, Veronica. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it spends
Yes.
like
Veronica.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, Ronnie's good too. It spends
Yeah. But
nearly
yes,
it
I
spends
got you.
nearly 40 minutes building the relationship between Seth and Veronica, such that
Yeah.
when he makes that fateful jump and accidentally gets flied, and then starts changing his behavior around her,
Mhm.
like, you feel bad about it. And then as he deteriorates, you can still see that they're in love with each other, and she's having to watch him slowly, cancerously die, basically. As the
Mhm.
body eats itself, and it's gut wrenching. There's emotional horror there along with the physical horror.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You see just like this descent into madness of this
Mm-hmm.
guy who was on the cusp of some kind of tremendous scientific breakthrough, and he thought he pulled it off to just losing himself in the
Mm-hmm.
madness of what he's created, and the woman he loves watching him just do this and
Mm-hmm.
having to watch and then killing her at the same time. Like Gina Davis did a great job with her face and her eyes and like just everything about her sung in this movie. And she was a young actress at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's had
Mm-hmm.
a tremendous career since then.
Mm-hmm.
But this really showed some chops, 40 years ago.
And it's interesting to see it come from David Cronenberg, who is a master of body horror, but I don't
Right.
always feel like is a master of character. Like he reminds me that it's a weird analogy, but he reminds me a lot in a way of like Isaac Asimov, who was really deep on building his worlds and then was
Mhm.
like, "Oh yeah, and the characters do something. Now let's get back to my world that I'm building." Like most of the time with David Cronenberg, I've watched like Scanners and
Mhm.
what Body Double or whatever it is, and a few other ones like that. And I want to like his movies. And I really like the horror he builds and the concepts and the things he works with. I don't generally like his characters at all. They feel flat and like they're just being dragged along on the movie. But that doesn't
Mhm.
happen with The Fly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he does a really good job in this movie, striking all the correct notes because to your point, a lot of his movies just come off as cheesy horror,
Yeah.
and gross,
Yeah.
and like the kind of movie you just don't watch with your girlfriend. You could watch this movie with your girlfriend and she might be grossed out of the horror, but she's gonna feel for the characters in this one.
Yeah, I've watched this with my wife 3 times now because it's one of the
Hmm.
few horror movies where she's like, "Oh yeah, I like this one. It's gross, but I like the characters."
There
Yeah.
you go. There you
Plus,
go.
plus she likes the gross. So I mean,
Yeah.
she's the kind of person where when horror goes so gory that it just stops being scary anymore for her. Like
And
the
starts getting funny.
yeah the giant gouts of blood in an Evil Dead movie or something like that. She starts cackling at that, and it's great.
Yeah.
But
Like Cabin in the Woods, like at the end
yeah.
of the movie with the
Oh
massacre in Cabin in the
yes,
Woods, like
yes.
all the blood, like you're just starting to laugh.
Yeah,
This is hilarious now.
she and
Thank
I
you.
were cheering for that, where like the blood is spraying and the monsters.
Yep.
It was hilarious. I loved that
Yeah.
movie. She did
What a
too.
great movie that is. We should
Yeah,
talk about that movie sometime too.
we
Throw
could
that one in the
add
hopper.
that on the list. That's not a problem.
Yep.
But
That's a
yeah,
good
no,
movie.
it's this is the kind of movie that has both. It has like the emotional connection, which
Yep.
I would argue even a movie like Cabin in the Woods kind of lacks at times. But it also has
Sure.
that really gross out horror.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just avoid everything else around it. The sequel, The Fly 2, is wretchedly bad. Oh my god.
Yeah, I've seen that maybe once or twice. I think I'm probably caught on like a sci-fi channel, but it wasn't. I don't. It never stuck with me as a movie that like I want to go. It always was like, oh, I'd rather watch the other one.
Yeah, that's
I
exactly
remember.
right. I saw it once on HBO a couple decades
Maybe that's
ago.
what it was. Maybe it's HBO. Yeah.
Just because it was airing. It's like the fodder they put on in the middle of the day just to have something.
Sure.
And then when I picked up a copy of it, because I was buying the complete Fly collection in pieces, I bought that one, and I was like, oh, that's really supposed to be disappointing. I wonder why. And then I watched it, like, oh, because everything about it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It lacks the body horror, it lacks the characters, it lacks a compelling story, it lacks good direct. It is just an unnecessary sequel of the highest order.
Yeah, one of the many Hollywood cash grabs, I guess you'd say. They're trying to play off the unexpected success of a little known movie to try to get some more money in their pocket. And I'm sure they succeeded at the time, but you didn't do the product any kind of justice.
No. Like, I can respect the sequels to the original Fly. There's The Fly, and then, like, Return of the Fly and Son of the Fly or something. It's, whatever.
That was a different time, though.
It was. And that was how it worked. That was how it worked, yeah. Because, like, you had a movie monster, like, say, Creature from the Black Lagoon. And then you made sequels to it because people would show up and it was cheap to make them. That was the time period. You can't have just one Dracula movie. You have to have 5 of them because that's how it worked. The 80s were different. Sure, they did sequels, but they were expected to be somewhat better, or at least pro-Reagan, pro-America, like all the fucking Rockies were. Like,
or bigger, bloodier, something more.
Yeah,
Everything was more. You didn't get to see, son of the Creature of the Black Lagoon anymore. Daughter's uncle's and sister of the Black Lagoon. Like that, it was just a different genre. It'd be fun, right? Like we're hitting on the dark universe here. Like, let's go.
Where is my Son of the Swamp Thing? I mean, I want that. Okay.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But different times, and this was a good movie, and this is I would put this in like your top tier echelon of like just random horror movies. If you're gonna like throw into a box and pull one out, this would be a good one.
Yeah,
this isn't like your tiers. We went over a horror list before. This isn't like in your top 3 to 5. But like this will be in the conversation. It's a movie I will watch. Yeah,
I mean,
it might. For us, yeah, but it might not be for you, is what I'm saying.
Okay,
as like
fair.
a person.
That's fair. Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I think certain people would probably, because we talked about this recently, might hold Sinners higher, which I would put high on like a list of really good movies, but I probably wouldn't put it high on a list of horror movies because we're pedantic and that movie's not very horror. But
you get what I'm trying to say. Though.
Yeah, exactly. Like this one is really top tier for us, but maybe not for everyone. I think the body horror would probably stop a lot of people from wanting to see.
Not everybody likes that, but I mean, some of the greatest movies and some of the most wonderful horrors we've been gifted are through practical effects and body horror. CGI has its time and it has its moments and it does its thing, but you will never get the visceral feel you'll get from a movie like The Thing ever again.
Like with those practical effects. I will say one of the funniest moments with The Fly is my sister in the theater. We're watching it. It's there. It comes up. Like, Jeff Goldblum goes to the telepod with the fly that's in there. He doesn't realize it. Mist comes out as the pod opens up. He steps out, looks like Jeff Goldblum, maybe a little more ripped, but Jeff Goldblum pans up to him, and she goes, "My God, his eyes!"
Oh man,
so good. Because like I, it's just one of those things where you're expecting horror, like in The Fly, the original 1950s one. And it's not that kind of movie, but you can still get a good laugh out of it.
Yeah, I mean, he's got scary eyes.
He's got creepy. See, that's what Gina Davis needed to realize, and why she eventually divorced him. Don't marry crazy eyes.
Yeah, no. You don't want to look at that every day.
She did for 3 movies. I don't know. Like, this was the best of their collaborations too. I've watched 2 of their 3, and I will say this is miles better than Earth Girls Are Easy.
I think Earth Girls Are Easy is a fun movie.
It is fun, but
a very young
trash.
Jim Carrey, a very young Damon Wayans. Like, it's a fun movie, but like,
it's trash though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, yeah.
It
does not hold a candle to the quality of this movie.
It's a weird movie. It's a very risque PG movie that desperately wanted to be more than it was. But it's also,
it wanted to be a porno so bad.
It wanted to be a 1950s sci-fi porno through and through, and it just couldn't.
They couldn't do it. It was made for TV, and it didn't need to be made for X-rated, and it certainly was not.
I think it would be far more interesting to have an X-rated sci-fi 1950s musical porno. Like, that's a movie I would at least watch once just to see.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like really great, like, hero-ish porno movies, let's talk about some other time if you've maybe seen it. A movie from the late 90s from South Park creators called Orgasmo.
Oh,
that's a fantastic movie.
I'd have to watch it again, but it is such a weird movie. Yeah.
Orgasmo, Basketball, like all those like they do some good stuff. Baseball's a great movie.
Anyway, we're way off topic now. The Fly. The Fly is an excellent movie through and through. Like, I've seen it I don't know how many times at this point, and I never have qualms with the movie. It's just top tier.
Yeah, it's a movie that, like, it's not like, your Shawshank level of like, oh, that's on, I'll throw it on, but like if I got nothing to watch and I see it's on, I'm absolutely going to leave that on.
Every once in a while I go back because I'm like, this movie was scary. I want to be scared again in a certain emotional way that most films can't. Yeah. This has been Not So Live from Asteroid G, trying desperately not to get any sand crabs in our telepod. I'm your host, Mike Finkelstein.
Your buddy Mike the Ghoul, gonna go and try not to think about the body horror of this movie because it was gross, but a good one.
We will see you all next time.